membrane of ingenuity that is the Dane and the Pain is back. This week we explore towing icebergs across the 7 oceans to the middle of the desert. Total craziness? We do our community service good deed of the week by letting you know of a serious hijacking flaw in Intel chipsets before we discuss the future of transport using 12,000 kilometer long trains. Or was that trains going 12,000 kilometers? Anyway, our sponsor for this week is the flatulence of years gone by.
You are listening to The Dane and the Pain, the show that is the wet lubricant of the Trans-Pacific Express submarine telecommunications cable link. My co-host is Joel Jackson, who is sitting on some... What, are you on a hill or in a tree or something in Alaska? Where are you, Joel?
I'm in an elevated position looking out Nichols Passage right now. But thankfully I'm inside. It is god-awful out right now. I don't know if... that's a term you're familiar with, but it's blown 25 or 30 and raining, and yeah, pretty typical Southeast Alaska weather. So
yeah, I was about to say, that sounds like Alaska.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's I'll start off with a story this week if you want. I bought another car. I have this. It's some people collect stamps. I collect cars, and we sometimes, we when I say we, there's a few of us here on the farm that kind of dabble in cars, and we tend to buy cars that we actually intend on selling. So we'll buy a car that's a good deal, we'll do it up, as in we'll wash it, and then we'll sell it on. Usually that's all it takes. Or we might break it up for parts. So especially like, 70s and 80s German cars, if you buy like a $200 car, you can obviously sell the bits for a hell of a lot more if you can find buyers for it. But in this case, this car that crept up is actually a car I've been looking for about probably 4 years now, I think, on and off. And it's really geeky. It's a BMW E23, which is a late 70s to early 80s BMW 7 Series, and it's a big old car. I'm sure you're familiar with the 7 Series, Joel, but it's kind of like the limo of the time, and this thing popped up in one of my many email notifications that I have for cars all around the place, and I just couldn't resist. It's an older lady that had it for many years. She's not able to maintain it anymore. It's got an engine problem that she doesn't want to resolve, and she just wants someone that has passion for it to take it off her hands. And she actually had 2 offers from wreckers before I approached her, and she said no. She went, I don't want this car to die now. I want someone that's going to make it live on. So that's my intention. And we already have
is it not
2
running?
other. Yeah, go on.
It's not running?
It is running. It is running. It's got. I don't know how technically we want to forget, but it has oil somewhere in probably the manifold. There's an oil leak that goes on, internal oil leak in the engine. It's the same engine as in my 5 Series, my 535. So this is a 735, and it has the exact same engine and transmission as my other BMW, which means that I'm kind of familiar with it and we kind of know what to do about it. And this, I've been told, I'm not an expert on engines, but I've been told this particular symptom here doesn't sound too bad. So we can probably take it apart and have a look and clean out something, and it'll most likely run pretty sweet again.
Is that naturally aspirated, so that's not fuel injected? The motor?
Those 2 things are not related, but
right, you know what I mean? So they're like
it is naturally aspirated. It doesn't have a turbo or a supercharger.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about it. So it doesn't have. It's not carbureted. It doesn't have a carburetor, or it does.
It's fuel injection.
It's fuel injection.
It's the old. Yeah, it's a Bosch system, which is actually quite reliable for that car. And that's usually not the problem. So the issue, I've looked at a couple of these before, and they've always been really quite tatty. They've been just not very nice. But this, she's really cared for it. It's got a few bits and pieces that needs replacing. The rear bumper is chrome's fallen off, but all in all, it looks really nice. And the price was very right. So we are going to go to Sydney, which is 500 miles away, to get it. But that's just what we do.
So you're going to go fix it and drive it back, or you think you're going to have to truck it or trailer it?
Oh no, we got a car trailer. So we can put it on the car trailer and take it back to the workshop. Yeah.
Well, you've got to. That's going to cost you a lot of money, and you'll lose money on it. But you'll be happy because you have it, right?
I won't lose money. What are you talking about?
I'm just teasing.
I bet you that if I wanted to, I could sell that car for probably 6 or 7 times what I paid for it.
Yeah.
With a little bit of work. It's not a bad investment, but I have no intention of selling it.
Yeah.
I want to fix it all up, which is not a lot, to be honest. Just fix the engine issue. We can probably register it. And then have it as part of a club plate, club permit scheme that we have in the state. That means you can drive it really cheaply for about 45 days a year. So
I
that's
see.
my
So
intention.
you don't have to license it all the way up.
No. We wouldn't have this many cars if we had to pay full registration on all of them. That would just be insane. So that's the plan.
That's your car news for the week. You fell off the wagon.
That's the car news.
And bought another one.
I know, we don't know where to put it, but that's a different issue.
It's interesting, Leo, when he was looking for a car, his first car, he was looking at this 735 BMW. There's, obviously there's like 2 of them in town.
Really?
Yes, it's an old one. And we went and looked at it. It had come up from down south. And the door handle didn't work. You opened it up, and it had obviously been owned by a smoker. It had so many issues with it that I cautioned off of it.
Just walk away. Walk away.
It was a dog. It was smoking a little bit too. I'm sure he could have driven it for a year or so. But my big thing was, I told him, I said, this is going to get about 8 or 10 miles to the gallon. It's going to be really expensive to drive, even if it does work. But
they're not terrible. Actually, they're not too bad. They got a 100-liter tank, so about 25 gallons, I think it is, which indicates that they do use a lot of fuel. But it's also meant for highway cruising, not island cruising, and that they do get about 10 liters per 100, whatever that is in miles per gallon. So 10 kilometers to a liter. So to a gallon, that would be. God, I can't do maths now, but it's not terrible. What is that? 25 miles per gallon or something?
Well, you shared something the other day on car sales, and the number of car sales worldwide. I think it was. Was that you?
Mm-hmm.
And
yep.
I of course, because you shared it, I took a rip at it because. I don't see it
because
because I'm me, and I thought it was pretty funny because, people will, we go back and forth and talk about Tesla all the time, and you'd shared some statistics on the worldwide sales of vehicles in 2015 or 16, I think, I can't recall.
15.
Yeah, and what was interesting is if you compared that to the sales of Tesla, Tesla was essentially a percentage of a percentage of worldwide sales. I mean, basically a rounding error. And it's interesting because if you think, if you followed the news, you would think that Tesla was, running these people over or changing the world, which in some regards they are. But they had something like $7 billion in sales in 2016, and in the lowest sales of the top 6 or 7 car makers was BMW, and they had 102 billion. And the
That's
one
right.
that's
It's basically Toyota and Volkswagen. They're at like $165 billion in revenue. So
yeah. When did Volkswagen get to be such a big? I didn't realize they were so they were so spread across the world.
Well, they are, but you got to remember that Volkswagen owns Skoda, which is probably the top budget brand in Europe, I would imagine. They also own Seat. They own Audi. They own Lamborghini, Bugatti, and parts of other manufacturers as well. So they do have a lot of brands that they market to different market segments essentially, but they all use the same technology. So the underpinning of a VW Golf, which we all know and love, is the same that's in a Skoda, oh God, whatever they're called, Superb, and in a Seat, who knows what. And in an Audi A4, right? It's all the same gunnets inside. So.
Well, that's Leo was giving me grief the other day because he's like, the A4 is the same as the Golf because we have a Golf, which is a blast to drive and I love. And I was like, yeah, the Audi was always sort of the guy who couldn't afford a BMW, but didn't want to be seen in a Volkswagen would buy an Audi or an Audi. How do you say it?
Audi.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. I digress. I'm happy you bought another car.
Americans.
Now, what is your piston coefficient now, right? Because so that there's a ratio to misery to the number of pistons you own, and you probably have what, like I don't know, 60 or 68, something like that.
Oh
maybe
God,
more.
are we talking pistons?
Yeah.
Oh man. I don't know. Yeah, probably. I don't even know how many cars we got.
I have a family member who's a commercial fisherman, and he had all these motors, and that was his thing. He hated them, and that was his piston coefficient. Was the amount of misery in his life.
Hey,
sorry.
Should we talk about something that actually is supposed to be on the show?
Yeah, it's okay. No, I like talking about cars. Cars are fun.
Me too. Let's do a whole show about cars. Actually, we'll do that another time.
We should.
Yeah.
We should do a show on first cars. So, but let's move on.
Yeah, because I want to talk about something really cold. Icebergs. Now, I stumbled across this thing. I think it was on Twitter because usually it's on Twitter, and I thought it was I was looking at the date. Is it 1st of April? No, it isn't. And apparently, the Middle East, in particular the UAE, so that's Dubai and Abu Dhabi and those states, are planning on dragging an iceberg to the Middle East, out to the shores of Dubai. I'm not kidding. So they want to go to Antarctica. They want to hook up a massive iceberg. Are we talking huge iceberg? And then essentially just drag it all the way back to the shore. Now, the main reason that they're going to do this is drinking water. There's a stress of drinking water shortage because it is in the middle of the desert, which is, some people would argue, that's why you don't build a massive city in the middle of the desert.
It's crazy talk.
Yeah, crazy talk, man. And the managing director of the National Advisor Bureau Limited, whatever that is, I'm not sure. His name is Abdullah Mohammed Suleiman Al-Shehi. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce that right, but that's the best I can do. He's proposing that they get an average iceberg, and that will give him more than 20 billion gallons of water. So we're not talking a small amount of water. He estimates it's a supply for 1 million people over 5 years. And that's, I'm guessing there's about 1 million people in Dubai. I actually don't know, but that's what I would guess. And people obviously on social media just went, you idiots, that's just ridiculous. But it's not that unfeasible. They do say it could take about a year to drag it all the way, because it's a very, very long way. We're talking, I don't even know, let's say 14,000 kilometers or something. They're going to drag this massive thing over, through storms and whatnot with ships. But it could also be a tourist attraction, because it would obviously not be dissolved in one go. And even though it's really, really hot in the Middle East all the time, it would still sit there for, some number of months or years, I'm not sure. But it wouldn't just melt in one go, obviously, because there's a massive amount of energy enclosed in that ice. So I was going to get your take on this and say, is this just completely brain dead, or can you actually see this working?
Well, there's a long history in Alaska of pipe dreams, if you will, regarding taking water to California from Alaska. As we've talked about before, where I live, we get 100 and roughly 13 to 15 feet of rain a year. And a governor of Alaska, Wally Hickel, back in the 70s, actually came up with a plan to build a pipeline to California to pipe our water down. And the interesting thing, of course, is water is much more valuable than oil or other things like that. We just haven't, as a world, recognized that yet.
How long is it from Alaska to California? How long would this pipeline be?
That would be, well, it's about 770 miles from here to in a straight line here to Seattle. So another, say 800 miles or 900 miles, depending where you're going. Depending where you're going in California, and that's straight line. It would be longer than that if you were actually building a pipeline. But I'm getting back to the idea here. Well, I would have thought that the technology for desalination, by the time that this would actually be feasible, would have caught up with. I know they're building those plants there. What's interesting is that if they don't have cheap enough energy to run the plants, I mean, it's you're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul a little bit, and it may make more sense. I don't know what the water temperature is there, but if the water temperature is markedly cooler than the surface or the air temperature, the ice could stay. And the other thing about ice like that is that it's much denser than ice that you'd see in your freezer. And so I don't, I'm sure if you went and looked, you could probably see studies, but that ice actually lasts longer. I think, technically it's possible. What would be interesting to me is typically we try to avoid icebergs, but they're basically moving a large navigation hazard into a waterway that's very small, full of super tankers. And politically unstable.
Yeah, it's true.
First you're right. You kind of laugh about it, but technically it's possible, and water is very valuable. And I guess in some sense, some of this breakup is already happening. Even in the South Pole, there's huge chunks of ice and that is moving or breaking off. And of course, in the Northern Atlantic, there have been unusually large ice breakup moving. It's a whole nother subject, but the Arctic is, probably within maybe not our lifetime, but certainly our children's lifetime, may become completely navigable, year round, which is, not the case right now, because of ice going away. So there's my point being is that there's going to be ice, and I don't think that there's probably. Right now there is no, there's probably no reason why they couldn't go grab a chunk of ice, but I could imagine a point in the future where there could be questions about who owns that.
Well, that was one of the questions that was raised, actually, is who owns the ice, and technically where they is proposing to get it from, it's international, it's everybody's right.
Yeah.
So that's probably not going to be so much of an issue. I think there's so many features and factors and variables in this that they haven't considered, and no one's ever dragged a 20 billion liter worth of iceberg anywhere, and it just seems crazy, because are they going to drag? What if they hit something on the bottom somewhere? If something's sticking, what if they get drifted? What if it cuts cables? How are they even going to drag it? And then someone's saying, well, technically, if you melt icebergs, the water level will fall because icebergs take up more volume than water does. But I guess, as you said, it's much more dense. I'm not sure about that fact either. But is it good practice to start harvesting ice from parts of the world that are so far away? And if they've done it once, what's to stop them from just continuing to do it? And
there's also,
I don't know.
There's also for people who are, marine biologists and and are interested in it, it changes the biology or the chemical makeup of the water. And I've seen research there. Well, they're doing research in Southeast Alaska. Further up in Southeast, we have lots of glaciers, Mendenhall Glacier, the Taku Glacier. Huge glacier fields, and it does affect or impact the makeup of the water. So it could affect marine life, even if it wasn't necessarily like smashing it, crushing it. You would change the water, the nature of the water that it sat in. So I guess it depends on what they, intended on doing. Immediately trying to blow it up into smaller chunks and then melt it, or trying to drill a hole in the middle and create a pool in the middle of fresh water that they would then siphon out. Technically, it'd be fascinating to try to figure out those problems. But it does kind of seem like a Dr. Evil thing in a really
it does.
cheesy movie.
It really does. And then what got me, so they've done this promotional video, like full on. Like most of the stuff in the Middle East, when they actually propose something, they do it full on, and it's always really nicely done. And they have this promotional video of how they're gonna get it, hooked on and dragged and all this. And then for whatever reason I don't know, when they get it to the shore in Dubai, whatever it is, on the iceberg are both penguins and polar bears walking around. And that to me, we just went, no, I have no faith in this project anymore. Like, there's just, if you don't even know what the difference is, between Arctic and Antarctic, and you do that, it's like, oh, come on, really?
Well, they give you, for folks who are listening that haven't seen, there was an iceberg that was spotted off of the Newfoundland coast, where it's a normal place where you'd find icebergs. But in this case, it was huge, to the point that it became a tourist attraction for folks to come and take pictures of it. And looking at it, if you go and do, maybe we'll put a link on the show notes, but if you go look at this picture, this is sort of what I'm envisioning. So it's an object that would, appear to be, say, the size of a rugby pitch or something like that, 150 by 150 yards, or 200 yards by 200 yards, and, maybe 10 or 20 stories high above water. And then you have to imagine it's 50 or 60 stories below water. Otherwise it would flip over.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just looking at that photo now. That looks crazy.
Yeah. So this is not, something that couldn't happen. It's more a question if somebody really has the cojones to make it happen, and obviously the need as well.
Well, I certainly think that the UAE is crazy enough to do it.
Yeah, we talked one time about having a show about water, and I think in technology, and maybe we should do that. This kind of got me thinking about that again, because it is a huge. It's a huge problem in the States, and pretty much every country in the world is struggling in one way or another to deal with issues around water rights, whether it be for farming, for drinking, for sanitation, all those needs. So
yeah,
well, more power to them. That's going to be one hell of a cocktail party, right? Shaken, not stirred.
Bring your mittens.
That's right. Can you imagine you're on the beach in the UAE and it's 110 degrees, and a half mile offshore there's a huge iceberg. That blows my mind. Yeah.
It does. In the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
Must be seeing things. So now, enough about icebergs and polar bears and penguins where they shouldn't be. I stumbled on something a lot more scary that I'm not sure how much people are actually paying attention to. There's an article from today, so we're recording this on the 8th of May, and it's about an Intel technology called active management technology. And that sounds really boring, and no one would probably care. But what this is that it's about 7 years ago that this was introduced on Intel chips, so it goes in your PCs, on your servers or whatever. And they had this technology that allowed essentially admins remote access to computers. But it was a direct access. And what someone has just found out is that Normally, when you have access as an admin, you do it over a tool like Remote Desktop or something like that, and you get access that way. This technology allows to do it directly via the chipset, so behind the OS, so the operating system was not involved at all. And normally you would have a password, right? So you have a password to log into this computer, and you would go on. And I'll just read from the article here. I'll just find the right spot here. But remarkably, the authentication mechanism can be bypassed by entering any string or no text at all. The cryptographic hash that the interface's digest access authentication requires to verify someone is authorized to log in can be anything and all, including no string at all. So yeah, that was the authentication, was just type anything you want. So if you knew about this feature and it was enabled on that computer, which most enterprise computers probably would have, you can just access it. If you had access to the network, anyone could access the computer. And this was 7 years ago, and it's only just come out. And I wanted to raise this because this always makes me think of, oh dear God, what else have we not found of these kind of stupid mistakes that engineers have made? All right. Yeah, it scares me.
This is a hardware. So for the layman, if someone was actually able to get into a computer from that level, what I'm unsure about, what would they be able to do?
Anything.
Because if it's separate from the OS, I mean, really, they wouldn't be able to pull.
No. It's not separate from the OS. The authentication is separate from the OS, and the network packets come in, so they can change the code that boots up computers. They can access the computer's mouse, keyboard, monitor, loading and executing programs. They can remotely power on computers that are turned off. As they say, in short, it makes you can do anything that an admin would normally be able to do with physical access.
So, do you suppose this is unintentional?
I certainly think that the authentication was buggered. I don't know how that got through any kind of QA process. It's very peculiar, and I'm even more worried that no one has picked it up until now.
So, is this just with so right now, what are we on the ICE, the 7th generation or whatever, the Intel chipset? Is this something that would affect all of any Intel chipsets, or is there like a cutoff?
Yep, it's from 2010 up till now.
Oh, jeez. So this is like a current issue. Well, I'm assuming that they've taken care of it, or somebody's come up with something to fix it, right? Since you know about it.
Not quite yet. So this is an article on Ars Technica, and so the company that found it is this what were they called? But they're not a journalistic company. They are Embedi is the company called. They're a security firm, and they've let Intel know, of course. EMBEDI. I know.
Sorry. That's a horrible name.
Yeah.
Go on.
And it kind of gets worse though, because there's no trace of anyone logging in as either. Because it doesn't go through the OS, there's no logs. It goes directly to the computer network hardware. It's really bad. And
I'm sorry, I just pulled up. It just got to Skylake and Kaby Lake chipsets as well, or the Q270. That's crazy.
It is crazy. That's why I want to talk about it. It is crazy, and it's like, even if it was a backdoor, it's really sloppy still. Like there's no reason that it should not have been patched, 6 years ago, or never even got out. Or it just makes me wonder what else is there that we haven't found that is as sloppy, right?
Wow, that's because. What I would be curious about too is, sort of broken down by nationality, where these chips. I'm assuming they're sold all over the world, but as someone who can be a little paranoid at times, it makes me wonder, if you're buying chips from a particular country, really there should be some standards applied that are agreed upon by, sort of by everybody. Well, we talked about this before when we were talking about coding and having people licensed to code, if you will. But when you have something that's being used all around the world, to the extent that you can, you need to make sure that everybody agrees that this is, that this is not one country's attempt to undermine another country. That's probably way bigger than you wanted to go with the topic, but that's where my head goes, because it seems to me like, for me, there's relatively little at risk that somebody would try to actively get at my information. But I would think for larger corporate customers, things like ransomware and that sort of stuff, or just corporate espionage would be a concern.
Well, it is. It's important to note that you do have to turn this feature on, right? It's not just enabled by default. It is a feature that's on the chipset, but it's implemented really, really sloppily. So they're saying here that they've found over 8,500 systems that has that interface exposed to the internet, which means that anyone could access it, and 2,000 of those in the United States. So we're not talking a massive number, but we are.
But you're talking systems, as in a company's network system, or are you talking about actual devices?
I'm not sure how they've defined that. I'm not sure.
Because 6,000 is really nothing. That's if it's
depends on who those 6,000 are. If they're the United States Energy Company, then it's a problem.
Yeah.
But there are patches that are coming out. Intel has released a tool that you can easily find out if it is a problem for you. But I think the overarching story here is that how the hell was this able to come out and happen? And it's like we see over and over again. It's like when we had the vulnerability in the SSL technology that all of secure traffic on the internet could actually be compromised through this, what they call the poodle vulnerability. I'm not sure what it's called, poodle, I can't remember. But it does happen from time to time.
Poodles.
But this has been going on for yeah, you do now. This has been going on for 7 years, so it's not a trivial thing. And I think it's important that we just kind of raise it and be aware of this, because it does happen.
One of my the thoughts I was having the other day is these sorts of things are really a good opportunity for folks who want to get at particular devices, because what happens is these will come out and be shared, or stories like this will be shared on, say, Facebook or what have you, and then folks will say, if you want to fix this or discover if you have this problem, here's the instructions, do this. And what I've seen in the past, anyways, is sometimes those instructions are basically a set of ways to get in, if you will, to your device. So just always beware, and go to reputable sources and the manufacturer. Stay away from Reddit and places like that, because there's a lot of bad information out there.
Oh, there is. Yep. But yeah, just dear listener, just be aware that this is a problem. You may or may not be affected, but it's always good to be informed. How about we talk about trains?
Trains, sure.
I like trains. I'm a big train fan.
Isn't train a band or something like that?
I've always traveled by train if I can. No. You sent me an article, or did I send? No, you sent me an article. We always get confused about these things, but essentially, there's now a direct London to China train, which seems crazy. It's a 12,000 kilometer journey from London to the western part of China. Eastern China's province of Zhejiang. Again, I'm very sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly. And it's a freight line, of course. They don't actually take passengers as of yet. The idea with this train is to transport freight much faster and much cheaper than you can on, say, a container ship. And there's arguments for and against, but essentially it took them 28 days. They were aiming for 26, but took 20 days. Oh, I think is that right? Yeah, let me just make sure I got my facts straight here. 20 days it took, and they were aiming for 18. So 2 days more, but still that's pretty quick. That's a fair way away, and they carried 88 shipping containers, and I guess that's where the argument comes in, because a container ship can carry 10 to 20,000 containers, but it takes 50 days roughly for a container ship to do the same route. So yeah, I kind of like the idea, but is it really that is it feasible?
Well, I think it's kind of it's interesting to me that this is sort of snuck in there, if you will, with all of the other the machinations you hear on the news regarding trade, and it's not the only line that applies that route. There's also one I think they talk about between Madrid and China. But I think it's interesting to me because you just don't hear about it, and I don't think it's going to be any more efficient than the containers, because the containers on boats can carry just those container ships carry huge amounts of material. That being said, to take a trip like that, if you can imagine being on a train going through 20 odd countries, and overall that train would be so neat, it seems a waste to do it with shipping containers. To me, I think it makes a lot more sense. It would be a lot more interesting. What's old is new again. And maybe in our world, people don't have the time or the financial ability to take an 18-day train ride, but it sure seemed appealing to me to be able to see the world and read a book at the same time, and fight and not have to fight through the crowds and all that. And if you would have read the news, you would have thought, oh my gosh, there's nothing going on between East and the West, and Russia's being isolationists, and China is focusing inward, and yet you still have these sorts of things happening. There's not much talk about how much it costs or anything like that. It seems more like an exercise in can we do it? And it appears to be more a push from the Chinese, right, than say a Western company. I know that in particular in Alaska, the Chinese, it's interesting that they're actively looking for places for folks to vacation, which seems odd to me, but given their population and upward mobility, if folks want someplace to go, and obviously they're going to look for places like Australia, right, where it's a relatively simple flight, and maybe that's what this is a way to get people from China to ultimately China to Europe, or into Europe, another venture that way.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think it's more about getting Chinese goods into Europe.
Really?
I mean, apparently London is the 15th city that's been linked to this freight network, and Madrid is apparently the longest route, which is 13,000 kilometers.
I guess the same pharmaceuticals.
It does have a good point.
You could.
Yeah.
I mean, those are pretty high volume or high dollar, for a small amount of material. Maybe that would make sense. If they're making our drugs.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know, or if they need to drop off along the way. Like, I could imagine this would be not, London to China, one go. It would be we pick up and drop off carriages along the way. That might make sense, especially if it is more of a network. There's another good argument here for doing by ship, is you have to go through all these countries in a train.
Yeah.
And every time you pass into a new country, you're going to have to do paperwork, bureaucracy, all this stuff, which you just don't get with a big shipping, with a big container ship.
Yeah, once you get 12 miles offshore, it's party on, right? you can do whatever you
exactly.
want. Pretty much. It's interesting. They didn't say anything about these. Most trains are diesel. And I didn't see any discussion, and actually I've seen very little discussion of electric trains. That is to say, these long-distance electric trains, which is kind of surprising.
That's hard, though.
Well, that's where the technology
comes in. There's an awful lot of infrastructure. Yeah, maybe solar cells. I don't know.
Well, and if you think about maintaining a line that long through that varied of... and I don't know if it's a narrow gauge, what kind of rail it actually is, but holy cow.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot easier to maintain seawater.
There you go. Well, yeah, such as it is. I thought it was interesting just because of the difference in, I mean, you just don't hear about this stuff anymore, and, what is old is new again. We're still relying on rail for a lot of our transport.
I didn't know this existed.
Yeah.
This huge network.
There you go.
Very interesting.
I learned something new.
Yeah, me too. And I'm about to teach you something new again.
Yeah, it says 12,000 kilometer run. I'm like, what the hell's a kilometer?
Oh, God.
It's like 7,000 miles. That's crazy. Anyways, what's the next topic?
Well, I think it's actually that time of the show where I get to indulge and tell a joke.
Oh, no. Is it that time already? Oh,
it
no.
It's the joke of the week, so come along with me. I cannot promise it will be funny, but it's the joke of the week.
So I've got a train joke, and it's a little bit long, but it's sciencey in nature. So you ready? You got to strap in. So get some popcorn. A group of computer scientists is attending a conference in another city, and they decide to take the train together. At the station, they meet a group of professors they know doing the same thing. Have you got your tickets yet? One of the computer scientists asked the professor. We're buying only one, they reply. How's that going to work? Asked the computer scientist. Just watch, replied the professors. The professors and the computer scientists board the train. They get seats close to each other, but just before the conductor comes to collect the tickets, the professors all get up and pile into the washroom. The conductor enters, proceeds down the aisle, and punches tickets. When he gets to the washroom, he knocks on the door. A single hand with a ticket in it pokes out the door. The conductor punches it and passes it back, and the hand disappears back into the washroom, and the door remains shut until the conductor has passed. The computer scientists are very impressed. After a brief discussion, they decide to try this brilliant trick on the return trip. The conferences end at the same time, and again the computer scientists meet up with the professors in the train station. Smiley with an air of knowing complicity, the computer scientists ask the professors, So, have you bought your single ticket yet? No, the professor replied. We haven't bought any tickets. How's that going to work? Asked the computer scientist. Well, just watch, replied the professors. The computer scientists are baffled, but proceed with buying their own ticket, or their one ticket, while the professors bypass their ticket window entirely. The two groups board the train. Following their plan, the computer scientists wait until everyone is settled in, and then all pile into the washroom to wait for the conductor to come. Once the computer scientists are all inside, one of the professors rises, walks to the washroom, and knocks on the door. Conductor! Do you get it? Oh, that's good.
I don't know.
So, dear listener, if you're still awake, the punchline was that obviously they would take the ticket from the computer scientist and do the same thing again, right? Anyway,
there's someone once told me that if you have to explain the joke, then don't tell it.
That's pretty much it. But you sounded like you were just falling asleep, so I thought I'll just put that in there.
Well, it is later here, anyway. So I did try to run up a mountain today, and my legs are screaming at me right now.
That was silly.
Well, and
all right, well, go to bed then.
Yeah, and everybody, if you have a second, go check out our site. Make sure you follow us and like us on Facebook if you go on Facebook, and also check out our show notes and check out our guests. Our episode we had out today has a gentleman from India, Mayor, who's incredibly smart and bright and funny, and go and check out his webpage. So until next time, Lars.
Episode 39. Until next time.
Take care.
All right, see you, mate. Thank you for listening in on another episode of The Dane and the Pain. We record across the Pacific, across hemispheres, and across time zones. You can find us on www.daneandthepain.com. Our Twitter handle is Dane_Pain, and we are The Dane and the Pain on YouTube and Facebook. We're also on your favorite podcast app, including iTunes, and please join our fan club by clicking the Register Now button on our website to know about upcoming shows and any free stuff we may have to share. See you next time on The Dane and the Pain.